think I didn't do anything wrong, just made a harmless joke. Then, out of nowhere, I found legal papers on our kitchen table, with my name on them. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. Let me back up and explain how we got here, because honestly, I'm still trying to wrap my head around Owen's complete overreaction to what was supposed to be innocent fun. It was a Tuesday evening in our suburban kitchen, the kind of ordinary weeknight that makes you realize how predictable married life can become. Owen was grading papers at the kitchen table while I scrolled through my phone, half watching Lila color in her princess book. That's when I saw Mark's text about the upcoming company retreat. "Hey, so Mark says the hotel might be overbooked for the insurance conference next month," I said casually, not looking up from my screen. "Maybe you two should just share a room. Could be fun, right?" Owen's pen stopped moving. He looked up with that confused expression he gets when he's trying to process something. "Why would you suggest that?" I laughed. "It's just a joke, Owen. Relax." But he didn't relax. If anything, he looked more uncomfortable. "I don't really understand why that would be funny." "Because you're being so serious about everything lately," I said, finally putting my phone down. "It's like you can't take a joke anymore." Owen went back to his papers, but I could tell he was bothered. The thing is, I wasn't entirely joking. Mark Reyes had been Owen's friend since college, and lately, he'd been the only person bringing any energy into our social circle. At 33, Mark managed a local gym and had this easy confidence that Owen seemed to lack these days. When we all hung out, Mark actually laughed at my jokes and engaged in real conversations, unlike my husband, who just sat there grading papers or thinking about lesson plans. The real test came that Friday when we had Rena and her boyfriend over for dinner, along with Owen's parents, Jocelyn and Elliot. I'd made my famous lasagna, and everyone was relaxed with wine and good food. That's when I decided to bring up the hotel situation again. "So Owen's being all weird about sharing a hotel room with Mark at the conference," I announced, grinning at the table. "I suggested it as a money-saving thing, and you'd think I suggested he run away and join the circus." Rena immediately perked up. "Wait, what? You're being jealous about Mark now?" she asked Owen directly. "I'm not jealous," Owen said quietly. "I just don't see why we'd need to share a room." "Because it's practical," I said, warming up to the audience. "And because normal friends don't make everything weird. But apparently, I married someone who's too insecure for basic friendship." My mother, Helen, laughed from across the table. "Oh, Owen, you can't be serious. Mark's such a sweet boy." But I noticed Jocelyn wasn't laughing. Owen's mother was watching me with that disapproving look she'd perfected over the years. "Maybe some jokes aren't appropriate," she said carefully. "Or maybe some people need to lighten up," I shot back. "It's not like I suggested Owen run off with Mark. Though, honestly, at least Mark knows how to have fun." The table went quiet. Owen stood up and started clearing plates, even though people were still eating. Elliot tried to change the subject to Lila's school play, but the damage was done. I could feel the tension, but I also felt vindicated. If Owen couldn't handle a simple joke, that said more about him than it did about me. Later that night, I posted on Facebook, "When you make an innocent joke and your husband acts like you've committed a crime, married life, honor you jealous husbands, lighten up already." I tagged both Owen and Mark because why not? If Owen was going to be ridiculous, he might as well own it publicly. That's when things got interesting. Mark DM'd me privately around midnight. "Hey, saw your post. Everything okay with you and Owen?" I stared at that message for a long time before responding. "Just the usual married stuff. Thanks for checking, though." His response came quickly. "If you ever need to talk, I'm around." I screenshot that conversation and sent it to Rena with the message. At least someone cares about my feelings. The next few weeks, I started looking forward to my lunch breaks in a way I hadn't in years. Mark and I began meeting at the little sandwich shop near my insurance office, and for the first time in months, I felt like someone was actually listening to me. Owen's been so distant lately, I told Mark over turkey clubs and iced tea. It's like he's physically there but mentally checked out. He comes home, grades papers, watches the news and goes to bed. Where's the passion? Where's the excitement? Mark nodded sympathetically. Marriage is tough, man. I see it with a lot of the couples at the gym. They just get into these routines and forget to actually connect. Exactly, I said, feeling validated. You get it. Owen just doesn't seem to care about making an effort anymore. What I didn't mention was how Owen had actually suggested a date night the week before, or how he'd tried to plan a weekend getaway for just the two of us. Those gestures felt forced, like he was checking boxes rather than genuinely wanting to spend time with me. With Mark, everything felt natural and easy. Our lunch meetings became regular. Then Mark suggested I try his gym since my old membership had lapsed. I can get you a friends and family discount, he offered. Plus, working out is great for stress relief. The gym became another escape. Mark would spot me during workouts, adjust my form, and we'd talk between sets. Other members probably thought we were together, and honestly, I didn't mind. It felt good to be seen as desirable again, to have someone's full attention. At home, Owen was pulling further away. He'd started working late, staying after school to prep for some science fair project. When I mentioned it to my sister and mother during our weekly coffee date, they were appropriately outraged on my behalf. He's emotionally abandoning you, Helen declared. A husband should prioritize his wife's needs. Right? I said. I try to inject some fun into our relationship, and he acts like I'm the problem. Meanwhile, he's never home, never present when he is home, and I'm basically raising Lila alone. Rena shook her head. You deserve better, Zeph. You're young, you're beautiful, you're funny. Owen doesn't appreciate what he has. Mark appreciates me, I said without thinking, then quickly added, I mean, as a friend, he actually listens when I talk. Maybe Owen needs to see that other people value you, Rena suggested. Sometimes men don't realize what they have until they think they might lose it. That conversation planted a seed. If Owen was going to neglect our marriage, why shouldn't I accept attention from someone who actually wanted to give it? The next time Mark and I were at the gym, I was more direct. You know, it's nice having someone who actually enjoys my company, I said as we finished our workout. Owen's an idiot if he doesn't see how amazing you are, Mark replied, and there was something in his voice that made my stomach flutter. I think my marriage might be basically over, I admitted. We're like roommates who happen to share a kid. Mark moved closer. That's really sad, Zeph. You deserve to be happy. When I got home that night, I found Owen sitting at his laptop in the living room instead of our bedroom office. What are you working on? I asked. Just school stuff, he said without looking up. You know, normal husbands ask their wives how their day went. How was your day? He asked, still typing. Never mind, I snapped. Clearly you're too busy for actual conversation. I went upstairs and called Rena. He's completely checked out, I told her. I could probably have an affair and he wouldn't even notice. Maybe that's not such a bad idea, she said. I'm not saying actually have an affair, but maybe let him think you could. Might wake him up. Later that week, I noticed Owen had installed some kind of app on his phone. When I asked about it, he said it was for productivity tracking. You're being paranoid about something, I told him. It's weird. I'm just trying to stay organized, he replied. Organized about what? You think I'm doing something wrong? I didn't say that. You didn't have to. This is exactly what I mean about you being insecure and controlling. That night, Owen moved his laptop out of our bedroom entirely. When I asked why, he said he didn't want to disturb my sleep with the keyboard noise. But I knew better. He was creating distance, probably because he couldn't handle the fact that I had a life outside our boring marriage. The breaking point came at our monthly neighborhood cafe gathering. It's this informal thing where couples from our street meet up for coffee and gossip. usually pretty mundane stuff about property taxes and school board elections. But that particular Saturday, I was feeling bold. Mark had started joining these gatherings recently, since he'd moved into the apartment complex just down the street. Having him there made everything more interesting, especially when I could see how the other wives perked up around him. It was validating to know that the most attractive single guy in our social circle was paying attention to me. "So, Mark," I said loudly enough for the whole table to hear, "Owen's still being weird about that hotel room situation. I think he's worried you're better company than he is." A few people laughed uncomfortably. Mark looked embarrassed. "Zeph, come on." "What? It's true. I suggest my husband room with his friend to save money, and suddenly I'm the bad guy." Meanwhile, Mark actually knows how to have a conversation that doesn't involve lesson plans or grading rubrics. Owen stood up abruptly. "I'm going to head home and check on Lila," he said to the table generally, not looking at me. "See what I mean?" I said as he walked away. "Can't even handle a little teasing." But the mood at the table had shifted. Even Mark looked uncomfortable with the attention. Sarah from down the street changed the subject to the upcoming school fundraiser, and I felt like everyone was avoiding eye contact with me. After Owen left, I felt liberated. I ordered another latte and dominated the conversation, telling stories about work and making jokes at Owen's expense. "Marriage is supposed to be a partnership," I explained to the group. "But when one person refuses to engage, what are you supposed to do? Just accept being ignored?" Most people nodded politely, but I could tell they were really listening. Finally, I was being heard. That evening, I posted a series of Instagram stories. Nothing too obvious, just quotes about deserving passion and not settling for less than your worth. I made sure they were public, because why hide the truth about my situation? The validation felt incredible. Friends from work and college were liking my posts and sending supportive DMs. "You're too good for this," one message read. "Don't let anyone dim your light," said another. But then Lila's school called on Monday morning. "Mrs. Vane, we're concerned about Lila's behavior lately," her teacher said. "She's been having trouble concentrating, and yesterday she had what seemed like a panic attack during reading time. Has there been any stress at home recently?" I felt a flash of annoyance. "Not really. I mean, her father's been working late a lot, so maybe she's picking up on that. Would it be possible to schedule a conference with both parents? Sometimes children act out when they sense tension between adults." "I'll have to check Owen's schedule," I said. "He's not always available for these things." When I hung up, I immediately called my mother. "Now, Owen's stress is affecting Lila," I told her. "His weird behavior is making our daughter anxious." "That man needs to get his priorities straight," Helen said. "A 7-year-old shouldn't have to suffer because her father can't handle his wife having friends." That afternoon, Jocelyn showed up at my office unannounced. Owen's mother had never liked me, and the feeling was mutual, but this was a new level of boldness even for her. "We need to talk," she said, settling into the chair across from my desk without being invited. "If this is about Owen's feelings being hurt, maybe you should talk to your son about being less sensitive." "This is about Lila," Jocelyn said firmly. "She's acting out at school. She's clingy and anxious at home. And frankly, your behavior lately is making everything worse." I felt my face flush. My behavior? I'm not the one working late every night and ignoring my family. "You're humiliating your husband in public, flirting with his friend, and posting cryptic messages on social media like a teenager. Do you think Lila doesn't notice the tension you're creating?" "I think you need to mind your own business," I snapped. "My marriage is between Owen and me." "Not when it affects my granddaughter," Jocelyn shot back. "That little girl deserves better than parents who can't act like adults." After she left, I called Helen immediately. "Owen's mother just ambushed me at work," I said. "She's blaming me for Lila's problems instead of looking at her precious son's behavior." "The nerve of that woman," Helen said. "You should tell Owen that his mother is interfering in your marriage. That's completely inappropriate." But when I got home that evening, there were flowers on my desk at work, beautiful white roses with no card. My heart jumped, thinking they were from Mark, a sweet gesture to cheer me up after the confrontation with Jocelyn. I took a picture and posted it on my story with the caption, "Someone knows how to make a girl smile." But then Jennifer from accounting mentioned something strange as I was leaving. "Your husband was parked outside earlier," she said casually. "Around lunchtime." I waved, but I don't think he saw me. That was odd. Owen never came by my office, and he definitely never sent flowers. So, who had? The next few weeks felt like living in a house of cards during an earthquake. Everything looked normal on the surface, but I could feel the structure shifting underneath. Owen became even more withdrawn, but in a different way. Instead of seeming hurt or angry, he was methodical. He'd always been organized, but now he was documenting everything, keeping receipts, writing notes, organizing files. When I asked what he was working on, he'd just say, "School stuff," or "financial planning." Meanwhile, Mark was pulling back too. Our lunch meetings became less frequent, and at the gym, he was friendly but distant. When I tried to text him outside of our normal plans, his responses were short and took forever to come. "I think we should cool it for a while," he told me after a particularly intense workout where I'd been more flirtatious than usual. "This situation with you and Owen is getting complicated." "What situation?" I asked, genuinely confused. "We're friends. Is that not allowed?" "Come on, Zeph. You know it's more than that, and I don't want to be in the middle of whatever's going on with your marriage." I felt rejected and frustrated. "So you're abandoning me too? Just like Owen?" "I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm just trying to be smart about this." That night, I confronted Owen directly. "I know you're planning something," I said as he organized yet another folder of papers. "All this secretive behavior, the note-taking, the weird apps on your phone. What's your endgame here?" He looked up calmly. "I'm not planning anything. I'm just trying to understand our situation clearly." "Our situation? What situation? The situation where you've emotionally checked out of our marriage, and I'm supposed to just accept it?" "Is that really how you see things?" he asked, and there was something in his tone that made me pause. "How else am I supposed to see it? You work late, you don't talk to me, you get weird about me having friends. Meanwhile, I'm trying to keep our family together and raise our daughter basically alone." Owen nodded slowly, like he was filing away my words. "And Mark, how does he fit into keeping our family together?" "Mark is my friend, the only person who actually listens to me and treats me like I matter." "I see." His calmness was infuriating. "Don't you care? Doesn't it bother you that your wife feels neglected and unappreciated?" "It bothers me a lot," Owen said quietly, "more than you know." But instead of fighting or trying to fix things, he just went back to his papers. That's when I knew I had to take more drastic action. I called Rena in tears. "He doesn't care, Rena." I basically told him I'm unhappy and he just sat there taking notes like I'm one of his students. "Maybe it's time to really show him what he's losing," she suggested. "Make him realize that other people find you attractive and interesting." "Mark won't even talk to me anymore. He says the situation is complicated." "Then make it uncomplicated. You're married to someone who doesn't appreciate you, and you're wasting your best years being ignored. If Owen won't fight for you, maybe that tells you everything you need to know." The next day, I was more aggressive in my social media posts. Pictures from the gym, quotes about knowing your worth, and subtle hints about being ready for change. I wanted Owen to see that I had options, that I wasn't going to sit around being taken for granted forever. But when I got home, I found Owen waiting in the living room with Lila on his lap, reading her a story. They looked so peaceful together, and for a moment, I felt a pang of something, guilt maybe, or regret. "Mommy," Lila ran to me for a hug. "Daddy's reading me the princess book." "That's nice, sweetheart," I said, but I was watching Owen's face. He looked tired, older somehow. Later, after Lila was in bed, Owen asked if we could talk. "I've been thinking about what you said," he began, "about feeling neglected and unappreciated. I want to understand better. Finally, I thought. Finally, he was ready to have a real conversation about our problems. I just feel like we're roommates, I explained. We don't connect anymore. We don't have fun together. I try to bring some lightness into our relationship and you shut it down. The hotel room joke, Owen said. That was you trying to bring lightness? It was me trying to get you to loosen up, to show that you trust me and our marriage enough to not be threatened by every little thing. Owen nodded thoughtfully. And Mark, he helps you feel connected. He listens to me. He makes me feel interesting and valued. Things you used to do. I see, Owen said again, and I wanted to shake him. Why was he so calm about this? Don't you want to fight for us? I asked desperately. Don't you care enough to try? Owen looked at me for a long moment. I care more than you realize, he said finally. But I'm starting to think we have very different ideas about what fighting for our marriage looks like. The next morning, I woke up to find Owen already gone. There was a note on the kitchen table. Taking Lila to school, then running errands. We'll talk more tonight. But when tonight came, Owen was waiting with a folder of documents and an expression I'd never seen before. We need to talk about the real situation, he said. I knew something was wrong the moment I walked into our living room and saw Owen sitting calmly at the coffee table with a manila folder spread out in front of him. He wasn't grading papers or checking his phone. He was just sitting there, waiting. Where's Lila? I asked, stalling. At my parents' house. She's having a sleepover with Grandma and Grandpa. That was unusual. Owen's parents rarely took Lila overnight on school nights. Why? Because we need to have a conversation without interruptions. Owen gestured to the chair across from him. Please sit down. I remained standing, crossing my arms. What's this about, Owen? More of your paranoid note-taking? It's about our marriage, he said simply, and about honesty. He opened the folder, and I could see printed screenshots, bank statements, and what looked like a legal document. My stomach dropped. I know about Mark, Owen said without preamble. I know about the lunches, the gym sessions, the late-night phone calls, and the lies you've been telling our families about me. I don't know what you think you know, but I know you've been having an affair. His voice was steady, matter of fact, emotional at minimum, but I suspect physical as well. I felt heat rise in my cheeks. That's ridiculous. Mark and I are friends. Owen pulled out a stack of screenshots. These are your text messages to Rena and your mother, where you explicitly stated that your marriage is basically over and that you're wasting your best years. This is your credit card statement showing charges at restaurants and hotels during times when you told me you were working late or running errands. My mouth went dry. You've been spying on me. I've been documenting the truth, Owen corrected, because I realized that whatever version of our marriage exists in your head doesn't match reality, and I needed to protect myself and Lila. He pulled out more papers. This is a record of every time I asked you on a date in the past 6 months, every time I tried to plan time together, every family activity I suggested that you declined because you were too busy or not in the mood. This is documentation of the times you left Lila with babysitters to go to the gym or meet friends, including several occasions when you lied about where you were going. I stared at the papers, feeling trapped. You're making me sound like a monster. I'm allowed to have friends and a social life. Of course you are, but you're not allowed to have an affair while blaming me for the problems in our marriage. I'm not having an affair, I snapped, but even as I said it, I knew how weak it sounded. Owen pulled out his phone and played an audio recording. It was my voice, from the neighborhood cafe gathering. Mark actually knows how to have a conversation that doesn't involve lesson plans or grading rubrics. At least Mark knows how to have fun. You recorded me. I documented you publicly humiliating me while flirting with another man in front of our friends and neighbors. Owen's calm was starting to crack, and I could hear real pain in his voice. Do you have any idea what that felt like, to sit there while my wife told everyone that another man was better company than me? For the first time, I felt a flicker of guilt, but I pushed it down. Maybe if you actually were better company, I wouldn't have to look elsewhere for basic human connection. Owen nodded slowly, like I'd just confirmed something he'd suspected. There it is. Even now, even caught in lies, you're still making this my fault. He pulled out another document, and this one made my blood run cold. It was official letterhead from a law firm. "I've filed for legal separation," Owen said quietly. "I'm asking for primary custody of Lila, with supervised visitation for you until you can demonstrate that you're prioritizing her well-being over your own desires." "You can't be serious." My voice came out as a whisper. "I'm completely serious. I've also frozen our joint accounts, and I'm asking for a full financial audit to account for the money you've spent on your affair." "Owen, please. It's not what you think. Mark and I never actually—" "It doesn't matter," Owen interrupted. "What matters is that you've been lying to me, to our daughter, to our families, and to yourself. You've been rewriting history to justify your behavior, and I won't let Lila grow up thinking that's what marriage looks like." I felt panic rising in my chest. "You're overreacting. We can work this out. We can go to counseling." "I suggested counseling 4 months ago. You said I was being dramatic and that our problems weren't that serious." Owen started putting the papers back in the folder. "I also suggested date nights, weekend getaways, and family activities. You were too busy with Mark." "That's not fair. You're twisting everything." "I'm stating facts. Facts I can prove in court if necessary." The word court hit me like a physical blow. "You'd really take Lila away from me?" "I'm protecting Lila from an unstable situation. Her teacher says she's having anxiety attacks at school. She's been drawing pictures of our family fighting. She asked me last week if Mommy and Daddy were going to get divorced, like her friend Emma's parents." I felt tears starting, but Owen's expression didn't soften. "I love you, Zephyra. I've loved you for 10 years, but I won't let you destroy our daughter's sense of security because you're bored with being married." "I never meant for any of this to happen," I said desperately. "But it did happen, and instead of taking responsibility, you've spent months gaslighting me and our families, making me out to be the villain in your story." Owen stood up and handed me a business card. "This is my lawyer's information. You'll need your own representation. The papers will be served officially tomorrow." As he walked toward the door, I called after him. "Where are you going?" "To pick up Lila. We're staying at my parents' house until you move out." "Move out? This is my house too." "Read the separation agreement. You have 30 days to find alternative housing. I'm not uprooting Lila from her home because of your choices." After he left, I immediately called Mark, but his phone went straight to voicemail. I tried again and again, but he wasn't answering. Finally, I called Rena in tears. "Owen's lost his mind," I sobbed into the phone. "He's trying to take Lila away from me. He's filed legal papers and frozen our bank accounts." "What? He can't do that." "He says he has evidence of an affair. He's been documenting everything like some kind of stalker." "Evidence of what affair? You and Mark never actually did anything, right?" I hesitated just a moment too long. Not really. I mean, we're close, but it's not like we slept together." "Zeph," Rena's voice changed, "what exactly happened with Mark?" But I couldn't answer that question, because the truth was, I wasn't entirely sure where the line was between emotional affair and physical affair, and I was terrified that Owen's evidence might fill in the gaps in ways that would destroy me completely. The next 3 months were a blur of legal meetings, family drama, and the slow, humiliating realization that I had completely misread my situation. Mark never returned my calls. When I finally cornered him at the gym, he was cold and distant. "I can't be involved in this, Zeph. My lawyer says I shouldn't talk to you while there's a custody case pending." "Your lawyer? Why do you need a lawyer?" "Because Owen's lawyer contacted me for a deposition. I have to testify about our relationship." The word relationship hung in the air between us, and I realized that Mark was going to protect himself by minimizing whatever had been between us. I was truly alone. My mother and Rena rallied around me initially, hiring a lawyer and coaching me on how to present my side of the story. "You're the victim here," Helen insisted. "Owen drove you to seek companionship elsewhere through his emotional neglect." But as the evidence mounted, even their support began to waver. The bank statements showing expensive lunches and hotel day passes were damning. The text messages I'd sent to friends and family, painting Owen as neglectful and boring, looked manipulative when read back in a legal context. Worst of all, the school reports about Lila's declining behavior and anxiety painted a picture of a child suffering while her mother pursued an affair. "Maybe you should consider accepting Owen's custody proposal," my lawyer suggested during one of our meetings. "Joint custody with him having primary residence. It's better than what you might get if this goes to trial." "I'm not giving up my daughter," I said firmly. "Then you need to be prepared for Owen's legal team to present a very unflattering picture of your recent behavior. They have documentation going back months, witness statements from friends and neighbors, and testimony from Lila's teachers and counselors. The custody hearing was scheduled for a Tuesday morning in November. I dressed carefully, trying to look like a responsible mother rather than the unfaithful wife Owen was painting me as. But when I walked into the courtroom and saw Owen sitting calmly with his parents and his lawyer, I felt a chill of real fear. Owen looked different, thinner, more serious, but also more confident than I'd seen him in years. He was wearing a suit I'd never seen before, and when he glanced at me, his expression was polite but distant, like I was a stranger. The proceedings were worse than I'd imagined. Owen's lawyer presented a timeline of my behavior that made me sound calculating and cruel. The hotel room joke was presented as the beginning of a deliberate campaign to humiliate Owen while pursuing his friend. My social media posts were read aloud, and, in the sterile courtroom environment, they sounded petty and vindictive. When it was my turn to testify, I tried to explain my side of the story. "I felt neglected and taken for granted," I said. "I was trying to save my marriage by making Owen realize what he had." "By having an affair with his friend?" the judge asked. "It wasn't an affair. Mark and I were close friends, but we never crossed any physical lines." Owen's lawyer stood up. "Your Honor, I'd like to present evidence that contradicts Mrs. Vane's testimony." They had hotel receipts, day passes to a hotel spa that Mark and I had visited together, charged to my credit card, security footage from the hotel lobby showing us together, timestamps proving we'd been there for hours during times when I'd told Owen I was at work. I felt the courtroom spinning. We were just talking, working out our problems. "In a hotel room?" the judge asked. "It was the spa. We were at the spa." But even as I said it, I knew how it sounded, and the truth was, there had been more than talking. There had been touching, kissing, moments of intimacy that stopped just short of sex, but crossed every meaningful boundary of my marriage. The worst part was when they brought in Lila's counselor to testify about the impact of the family instability on a 7-year-old child. She talked about anxiety, behavioral regression, and the confusion children experience when their parents' relationship becomes a source of conflict rather than security. "In my professional opinion," the counselor concluded, "Lila would benefit from a stable primary residence with clear, consistent boundaries and limited exposure to ongoing parental conflict." When the judge delivered her ruling, I felt my world collapse completely. Owen was awarded primary custody, with me getting supervised visitation every other weekend and one evening per week. I was required to attend counseling and parenting classes before unsupervised visits would be considered. The court finds that Mrs. Vane's recent behavior demonstrates poor judgment and a prioritization of her own desires over her child's well-being, the judge stated. While the court does not doubt Mrs. Vane's love for her daughter, love alone is not sufficient to ensure a child's stability and security. As people filed out of the courtroom, I caught Owen's eye. For just a moment, his composed mask slipped, and I saw the pain I'd caused him. Not anger or vindictiveness, but genuine heartbreak. He'd really loved me, and I'd thrown it away for the thrill of feeling desired by someone else. Jocelyn and Elliot walked past me without acknowledgement, but I could see Elliot's hand on Owen's shoulder, offering the kind of support I'd forfeited through my choices. My mother and Rena were waiting outside, both looking shaken by what they'd witnessed in the courtroom. "We'll appeal," Helen said, but her voice lacked conviction. "With what evidence?" I asked bitterly. Everything they said was true. 6 months later, I'm living in a one-bedroom apartment across town, working the same job, but with the knowledge that everyone there knows about my divorce and the circumstances that caused it. I see Lila according to the court schedule, and she's slowly warming up to me again. But there's a wariness in her eyes that breaks my heart. Owen remarried last month. Not Mark, apparently. Mark left town shortly after the custody hearing, but a teacher from Lila's school, someone who was there during the worst of Lila's anxiety and helped her through it. Someone who prioritized my daughter's well-being when I was too selfish to do so myself. I still think the hotel room joke was harmless. I still think Owen overreacted to what should have been a minor marital rough patch, but I also know that my opinion doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that I lost my family because I convinced myself that I deserved more excitement than the quiet, steady love of a good man who was trying his best to build a life with me. The legal papers on our kitchen table weren't the beginning of Owen's revenge. They were the end result of months of my own choices, documented carefully by a man who loved me enough to fight for our daughter, even after I'd made it clear that I'd rather fight for the attention of his friend. I thought I was the victim of an insecure husband's overreaction to innocent fun. It turns out I was the architect of my own destruction, too blinded by entitlement and self-justification to see what I was throwing away until it was already gone. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching.